Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Gist Angle. It's been a while, almost 2 years, and I truly want to start by saying thank you to everyone who stayed connected, waited patiently, and still believes in this platform. I didn't want to return just for content, I wanted to return with clarity, with intention, and with conversations that go beyond surface level gist. So today's topic is one that has been unfolding quietly for a long time, but it's only now becoming visible to the public. The current marital tension between Nollywood actress Regina Daniels and her billionaire husband Ned Nwoko. This isn't just trending news gist. There is context, there are layers, and there are early signs many people didn't notice when everything still looked perfect from the outside. What we are doing today is not just reporting gossip, we are examining how the foundation of this marriage was built, what was exchanged for what, how expectations collided with reality, and why things appear to be unraveling now in full view of the internet. So let's take it step by step and look not only at what is happening, but why it is happening. Now, let us look at the foundation and motivation behind this marriage. When people talk about the problems happening now, they usually start from the scandal or the latest headline. But the truth here is, this story did not start today. It started from the foundation of the marriage itself. Regina did not marry Ned from a place of emotional readiness, life maturity, or gradual romantic commitment. She married from a place of influence and pressure, especially family pressure, most especially from her mother, who openly supported and facilitated the union. At a time, Regina was a teenager whose career was just beginning to peak. She was a rising actress, still forming her identity, still figuring out adulthood. Yet, in the middle of that transition, she was placed in the life of a much older billionaire, a man old enough to be her grandfather, and expected to instantly adapt to a lifestyle far beyond her emotional age or lived experience. It is not possible. Two things motivated the marriage on Regina's side. One, financial security disguised as a blessing. Two, her mother's personal ambitions using her daughter as access. This is the part many people don't like to say out loud. If it were just Regina alone, with no external grooming, guidance or adult influence pushing the decision, she would never have married a man in his 60s at that stage of her life. The power dynamic was already uneven before the wedding took place, and this matters because when a foundation is built on something other than personal readiness, emotional compatibility, or mutual growth, what you get is a sacrifice disguised as stability. You get survivor dressed as love. So when we look at what is happening today, we must also acknowledge the fact that Regina never had the chance to develop one, her identity, her personal autonomy, and her emotional adulthood. All of those were traded for security long before the crisis reached the public. And now, what we are seeing is not a sudden breakdown, it is a delayed consequences of an arrangement that was never emotionally balanced in the first place. Now, if you ask me what Ned wanted from the marriage, now to understand the other side of this story, we have to look at Ned's motivation as well, because this was not a marriage built on mutual emotional alignment. It was a marriage built on exchange. Ned has publicly admitted more than once that he married Regina partly due to family pressure, specifically the expectation that he should marry again from his hometown, and secondly, because he wanted a young virgin. In other words, his criteria were not rooted in companionship, compatibility, or emotional connection. They were rooted in tradition, control, status, and legacy. So while Regina was entering the marriage from a place of financial dependency and external influence, Ned was entering it from a place of possession and fulfillment of cultural expectations. This is important because it explains why the power imbalance was never hidden. Regina needed Ned for access, and Ned needed Regina for image continuation and cultural approval. No matter how polished a marriage like this looks on Instagram, my dear, it does not change what it was built to serve. Stability for him, adaptation for her. And because Ned is not just a wealthy man, but a high profile political figure, reputation becomes a major currency. Everything must look orderly, respectable, controlled, and perfectly arranged. So when you step back and ask, why is this crisis now playing out in public? The answer is simple. This is the first time Regina is acting outside the script. The first time she is no longer fitting into the role he designed. And when a marriage is built on rules rather than mutual growth, the moment the younger partner begins to find her voice, her cracks become visible. Now let us look at the cracks that started quietly before the public saw it. The truth is that this marriage didn't suddenly fall apart. It gradually shifted from what the public assumed it was to what it really was behind closed doors. People think crisis starts when a video goes viral, or when a statement is published, or when an allegation is made. No, but the first signs always show up in the smallest changes. At first, what people noticed was a subtle emotional distance. Regina stopped appearing in Ned's interviews as frequently. She stopped posting him with the same excitement. The captions changed. The public couple dynamic became less affectionate and more formal. This wasn't loud, it was quiet, but it was real. Then came the lifestyle shift. Regina's public presence became centered around motherhood and personal branding, while Nen's narrative remained structured around politics, legacy, and cultural identity. They stopped moving as one unit. They began operating in two separate emotional worlds that only met when it was time for protocol and public appearance. And when you compare her aura before and after marriage, there was a difference. She looked present but not completely connected. She looked comfortable but not necessarily fulfilled. When a young woman marries into a structure that is already firmly set, my dear, there is no space for self discovery. She becomes a participant in someone else's legacy, not a creator of her own. So, what the public is witnessing now is not a new problem. It is the moment the disconnect that started silently years ago is finally surfacing clearly. This is why many people are now saying, so the signs were there, we just didn't interpret them correctly. And truly, they were. Now let us look at when private tension finally became public. The turning point in every controlled marriage is the moment it stops being managed quietly and starts slipping into public view. And that is exactly what has happened here. The recent tension didn't go viral because of gossip. It went viral because the silence broke. For the first time, Regina stopped curating the image of perfect composure. She became visibly emotional in a way she couldn't hide. And once the public saw it, questions followed naturally. Let's assume Regina never made that statement.
In Ned Woko's house.
No, 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 no,
In
no.
Ned Woko's house, I am nothing. But in my house, I am a queen.
No, you're still as valuable. Mom, look at me. Look at me, mom.
Baby, once again, I cannot stand the violence. It's too much. It's too much.
Don't go give water now. Don't go give water. Just
I
relax.
actually want something. I better give her water, Jarea.
Just wait. Just
I
relax.
actually want something.
Just relax.
Wait. Shame on you.
Are you bringing out a gun?
Hey, can you imagine?
Let's assume Regina never made that statement. In Ned Nwoko's house, I am nothing, but in my house, I am a queen. She openly said it herself, and she went further to say the violence, she can no longer tolerate it, which means it has been going on and she has been keeping quiet for long. Okay, let's assume she never made any statement and the clip only showed where she was being dragged by people involved in a fight. They would have come up with stories tomorrow to say, it is this, it is that. And you know they have a way of covering up these things. And we, the public, we are just meant to believe what they want us to. But she openly said it. In other words, she is fed up. Now let us look at the way Ned even responded. He responded not with emotional reassurance or clarity, but with a public statement claiming that Regina is battling substance and alleging she destroyed property and assaulted staff. Oh my goodness. Now, regardless of whether people believe his claims or not, the tone of that response reveals something important. This was not a husband protecting a wife. This was a politician protecting a reputation. This is also where the power imbalance becomes obvious. When the older partner controls the narrative, the younger partner is automatically framed as the problem. Meanwhile, those who knew Regina before the marriage insist that substance abuse was never part of her personality or public behavior. So the question is not just, is she doing it? The deeper question should be, if she is, why would she need it? Is it coping? Is it for isolation? Is it pressure? Or is it simply a political deflection? I don't just understand. Because when emotional strain builds up for years without a voice, it will find another outlet, sometimes unhealthy ones. What is clear is this: the issue is no longer a private disagreement. The marriage has entered the stage where image management has replaced intimacy. Once a marriage reaches that stage, the conflict stops being about what happened and becomes about how it will be perceived. That is where they are now. Now, here are the social media signals people overlooked. In today's world, people rarely speak their truth directly. They show it subtly, especially on social media. And if you look closely at Regina's recent online behavior, she has been signaling distress long before this public fallout. The first major indicator was her gradual removal of Ned from her digital identity. She didn't announce separation. She didn't post anything dramatic. She simply detached his presence from her page quietly. The affectionate caption stopped. The couple photos reduced drastically. Even her tone changed from marital display to individual branding. Then came the moment fans considered a soft confirmation. She officially removed Wonko from her Instagram bio. In digital language, this is not a small gesture, it is a boundary. It is a silent declaration of emotional distance. People who hide nothing change nothing. People who are still fully inside a union don't start erasing identity markers linked to that union. And her emotional video, the one where she looked overwhelmed, didn't appear out of nowhere. It was the emotional release of someone who has been performing strength for years. This is why I said earlier, this crisis didn't start on the day people saw tears. The tears were simply the first time the truth escaped the mask. When a woman begins to take back her narrative online, it usually means she has already taken back her power internally. So the audience saw discomfort, but what she was actually displaying was exhaustion from holding an image that no longer matches her reality. And once a marriage reaches the point where the emotional withdrawal becomes visible publicly, it means the detachment began privately long ago. Now let us look at her real identity versus public image. At the core of this entire situation is a very simple but powerful truth. Regina and Ned want two different lives. Regina is still young, still evolving, still discovering who she is outside of motherhood and luxury. She wants expression, creativity, visibility, youthfulness, the full experience of being a woman in her prime. But Ned, on the other hand, is in a completely different life phase. He is not in expansion, he is in legacy mode. He is not in self-discovery, he is in image protection. His marriage is not a love story, it is a cultural structure, a political extension, and a reflection of status continuity. That difference is not age alone, It is a difference in life direction. A younger woman wants to live her life. A political figure wants to manage his narrative. Regina wants flexibility. Ned wants containment. And when someone enters a marriage before fully forming emotionally, they eventually wake up and realize they have outgrown the version of themselves the marriage was built around. That is what is happening now. People think this is marital drama. No, but it is actually an identity conflict. She wants to expand. He wants her to remain within the boundary that protects his public image. She wants autonomy. He wants structure. She wants self-expression. He wants controlled representation. This is why she now behaves differently online. She is slowly reclaiming self-definition. And this is also why his response was immediate and defensive. Not relational, but reputational. You can tell when a marriage is about partnership versus when it is about positioning. Partners defend each other. Political figures defend their image. That is where the fracture became visible, not in emotion, but in narrative control. Why has it now spilled into the public? For years, everything was managed quietly, as long as everyone kept playing their assigned role. But the marriage only worked when silence was obedience. The moment Regina started acting like a woman with her own voice, not just a wife in a political household, the system began to shake. This is why it is now public. There are three key reasons. 1. The family agreement has broken. What held the marriage was arrangement, not alignment. Once a young bride begins to see herself as an individual, not a family investment project, she is no longer controllable in the same way. Silence turns into questions. Compliance turns into opinions. Presence turns into independence. That is when families panic, not because love is threatened, but because control is slipping away. 2. Public image is no longer protecting them, it's pressuring them. When the world believes a marriage is perfect, there is no room for natural conflict or growth. Now that she has outgrown the image, everything looks like disrespect or rebellion, even when it is simply maturity. The image stopped serving Regina a long time ago. It was only serving Nand. 3. This is the first time she is no longer hiding her emotional reality. The old Regina would smile, pose, post, and move on. But the version of her we are seeing now, she is exhausted, she is unfiltered, she is no longer protecting the narrative. What concerns her? That emotional video wasn't random, it was a crack in the performance. When a woman stops performing well-being, it means she has either reached her limit or she is done pretending. And the moment she stopped protecting the castle, the cracks in the wall became visible to the public. All of this tells us something very important. This didn't start today. It simply became undeniable today. Looking back now, the signs weren't really hidden. We didn't just connect them. When Regina stopped glowing and started merely showing up, when posts became more about her children and less about her husband, when she started living separately in her soft nest instead of appearing united in his structure, that was the first time, or that was the first quiet warning. When she praised herself more than the marriage, when she started choosing her own space over his public image, when her tone became woman finding herself instead of girl being managed, that was the second warning. And the day she openly said, In Ned Nwoko's house, I am nothing, but in my house, I am a queen, of course. That was not just a slip, that was a confession. She wasn't just in pain, she was testing her freedom. And once a woman begins to taste freedom publicly, she's no longer inside the marriage, she's standing at the door of it. And here is the real takeaway: this was never a love story growing cold. It was a transaction evolving into resistance. And once resistance enters a transactional marriage, the contract weakens, the image cracks, and the truth starts leaking, exactly as we are seeing now. So, fam, this is where I'll pause the gist for now, because at this point, the question is no longer, is something wrong? The real question is, how long has it been wrong? And trust me, what is surfacing now is only the public version. The private version, that one we have part two. We are not just talking marriage crisis, we are talking control versus identity, image versus reality, and a young woman finally outgrowing the contract she once agreed to. As this story continues to unfold, Gist Angle will keep bringing you the side no one else is analyzing, not just gist, but understanding. So, if you want the next update and meet the inside dynamics, the next move from next camp, and whether this is heading towards separation, restructuring, or full blown public war, Omo, you already know what to do. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in, because this saga has not finished. It has only just started showing face. To the next gist, don't just watch headlines, understand story behind them. This is Gist Angle signing out.
It's just Angle.